I'll turn my... Yes. Hey, good evening, everybody. This is Samantha. I'm Samantha Royster. Sorry, I should be more formal. I don't know everybody yet. In fact, I see a lot of new names here, so I'm really excited to meet all of you. And well, I don't think I'll have time to, find out who everybody is, but I certainly would like to, and I'm really excited to see so many folks here. Welcome to the first North Carolina CERT Forum for all CERT volunteers. I hope that everybody will enjoy this evening, and I will ask that unless you're one of our speakers or you have a question, if you could keep yourself muted, that would be great so we don't hear a lot of background noise and so forth, but definitely we want people to interact, and if you do have a question or a comment, then you can unmute yourself for that, but most of the time, if you'll stay muted, I think that'll be easier for everyone and we won't have so much background noise. As I mentioned, I'm Samantha Royster, and I'm the North Carolina CERT program manager. And so I work for North Carolina Emergency Management, and real happy to have everybody here. I just have a couple of slides here, and then we will get started with the program. Again, welcome. So if you could drop your name and what CERT program you're with in the chat box, that would be great because I don't know all of you. And if you are not already receiving emails from me, please, you can do this privately to me if you don't want to send this to everybody, but if you will send me your email address, I would love to be able to add you to the email list. If you're already getting emails from me, then I've got you and it's good. Otherwise, if you don't mind, you can send me that privately so that I can stay in touch with you. That would be awesome. All right, so just a little update on what's going on with CERT in North Carolina. We are now up to 94 programs across the state, which I'm super excited about. Even in the midst of this pandemic that we've been experiencing, we have had 3 new programs come on in the last year. So I wanted real quick to welcome them. Whispering Pines CERT is one of those out of Moore County, and I think I saw Cindy on here. I don't see her at the moment. Oh, wait, maybe she's here. I'm only seeing people with pictures up. But Cindy, I think that you're here. She is with Whispering Pines. Yep, I see her name there. Great. And I don't know if Brian is on as well. Brian with Whispering Pines. All right, so that is one of our newest groups. And another new group is the Eastern North Carolina Rescue Squad CERT out of Pitt County. And I did see Matthias there, so welcome to you. We're so glad to have your group joining us, and we look forward to getting to know you better. And our very newest, as of last week, out of Swain County, we have the Deals Gap CERT. So one thing I really love about this list right here is there is one team for each of the 3 branches. So Whispering Pines is in the central branch, Eastern North Carolina obviously in the east, and then Swain County, the Deals Gap CERT in the western branch. So I just think that's pretty cool that we added one new team for each of the branches this year. And I want to keep seeing this program grow. I think it's fantastic. So welcome to all of you new guys. We're glad that you're here. I do want to tell you all about the North Carolina CERT Council, which we introduced at the beginning of last year, and we were slightly sidetracked by the pandemic, but we still have been meeting regularly. So I want you to see there for your branch who your representatives are. I know some of these folks are on the call. I don't know if all of them are here. But if you are looking to get in touch with your rep for your branch, just shout out to me. In fact, let me put my, oh, Diane says she can't hear me, but I think everybody else, just nod your head if you can hear me. Yep, so it looks like a lot of people are hearing me. So Diane, I'm not sure what's happening. You might want to jump off the meeting and jump back on again, or check your audio settings. Of course, she can't hear me saying that. Anyway, thank you. Jay is going to type that in there for me. Diane Quintal. Yeah. All right. I just put my email address also. Oops, I only sent that to one person. I meant to send that to everybody. If you want to get in touch with your rep for your branch, you can email me There we go. Email me at that address and I'll be happy to put you in touch with them if you have any questions for either of your branch representatives. And again, many of these folks are on here tonight. So maybe, and actually you're going to hear from a couple of them. They're some of our speakers as well. All right, so I went backwards. I meant to go forwards. All right, I think that's all that I had actually. And so is Andy Foshee on? Oh, I did have my agenda. Let me do that real quick. So here's what we're going to talk about tonight. What? Oh, great. Okay, excellent. I'm not sure what's happening with my computer. We might be breaking WebEx with so many people. We'll find out. Okay, so here's our agenda. We are going to hear from Andy Foshee with the North Carolina CERT Council. He's also with Chatham CERT. He's going to tell you all about a new speakers bureau that we're starting. And then we are going to hear reports from 4 different CERT programs across the state about some of the activities that they've been doing in the recent months. And you can see what they are here, but we'll be hearing from each of those speakers. And then we will have a question and answer period. So anything CERT related is fair game. And if I don't know the answer, I will find out and I will get back to you. So, okay, Andy says he can't unmute himself. Hang on. Okay, where is he? There he is. Unmute. I sent a request, Andy. There we go. All right, so he should be good now. All right, so again, question and answer period at the end. So any of your CERT related questions, we will get to those. And I'm willing to stay on as long as you guys have questions. So I'm here all night long if that's how long you guys want to be. So I will log off of here and I will turn the floor over to Andy. Let me stop sharing this screen. Everything's moving a little slowly, I think, because we have so many people on. So I don't know how much of a difference it might make, but perhaps if we turned off our cameras, unless you're a speaker, that might help with the bandwidth. I'm going to turn off my camera so that we'll see if that helps with getting things moving better. But Andy, you have the floor, sir.
Good evening, folks. As Samantha said, my name's Andy Foshee. I see a little blue line around my portrait, so I hope you can hear me.
I hear you loud and clear.
Yes, you're coming in fine.
Excellent, thank you. The program that Sam's talking about is the first thing that we with the NC CERT Council want to roll out. Pretty much just grabbing low-hanging fruit at this point, given COVID-19 and such. But we believe that it's also very effective given the current situation, in that what we would like to do is to have anybody who has a presentation or a speaker that they are familiar with, either you can send us your information or send us the information for a dynamic speaker that you have had. I will reach out to them. And as you can see, we're currently just doing it with Google Drive. I'll show you in just a moment what we hope to graduate to sometime in the near future. This will be rolled out sometime next month. We currently, as you can see, just have the 3 starting documents. Speakers and users have their own starting documents. Gives them a little bit of information about what it is. We have the usual disclaimer, rules of use, yada yada. Don't come back and wind us if anything's broken or whatever. Pretty simple. You just go through and look at the topics. For example, animal response training, bites, stings, and other things. I'm going to choose one that I created because I haven't asked Sam's permission to show either of hers. But it's just a very simple summary of who the person is, what their contact information, duration, in person or online, what the prerequisites might be, who it's really targeted for, and then what is the abstract? What is the actual presentation? Also, is this something that can be done via Zoom, or does it have to be done in person? So, for example, in this case, it is one that can be done via WebEx, Zoom, or any other virtual platform. What we would like to eventually get to is something like this. This is a tool called Groups.io. This is a database that's been created. In it, you can see a little bit more information in one place. So, for example, the second one here, you've got an in-person Homeopathic Cures with Common Household Items by Madame Curie and her abstract. But it also has categories, so you can choose specific categories. So this is what we want to graduate to, is something like this tool. The only reason we're not using it now is it is a subscription, and unfortunately, North Carolina CERT does not have a budget. And that's pretty much all I have, unless there are some questions. Anybody want to toss up any questions for me?
Anybody at all? And I should have pointed this out before, but if you find your own name in the participant list and hover over it, you'll get a little gray band and a little hand will appear. And if you click on that little hand, that's how you raise your hand so that we'll know that you have a question. Like Dave Bruhn just raised his hand. I don't know if you saw that over on the participant list, but if anybody has any questions for Andy, Charlie, oops, hang on, let me unmute you. All right, Charlie, you should be able to unmute yourself now. So we can get your question, or were you just practicing with your hand? Let's see if Charlie can unmute. There we go.
All right, now I'm unmuted.
Yep, gotcha, Charlie.
So Andy, my name's Charlie. I work with Wake County Emergency Management. I was just curious, has the CERT teams ever thought about going with the grants that FEMA gives out for the CERT and Citizen Corps? And if so, aren't the states eligible for that money?
That's more a question for Samantha. I was not familiar with the money being available from FEMA or Homeland Security for CERT programs at this time.
Yeah, I can speak to that. So the Citizen Corps money is delivered at the state level, and so the decisions of how to spend that are made above my pay grade, well above my pay grade, and they have not chosen to share those funds with CERT at this time. Oh, Roger has his hand up. Let me unmute you, Roger. All right, Roger, I sent you a little, oh, there we go. I think we should hear you now, Roger. Go ahead. Are you there, Roger? Do you have a question? Okay. Oh, so Marianne's asking if the speaker list will be available for CERT members to browse. Yes, so that's the whole point of it. So if you are in any CERT program in the state and you have a meeting coming up, you're doing your monthly trainings and you need help with a topic, we will have some of these available that are all-inclusive where you can download the program and deliver it yourself. We will have some where the speaker owns the proprietary rights to it or whatever, and they want to be the one to present it. And hopefully we'll have a lot of speakers who are willing to deliver that virtually, so that, you know, we're not all meeting in person at this time. Roger, I see your note and we could not hear you, but we'll try again in just a second. Or if we ever can meet in person again, this will also be speakers who are willing to come to you and deliver a program. But for right now, it is mostly going to be speakers who are willing to present virtually. So that will be the point. You can go and browse this. The contact information for the speaker will be there. And then you'll be able to choose which programs you want. Did that answer your question, Marianne? All right, Roger, I think you are unmuted now. Let's try again. It looks like you're unmuted because your little microphone is green, but I'm not hearing anything. Yeah. Roger, can you maybe, I don't know, type your question in the chat? I'll come back to you in a second. I'm going to try to unmute Margaret. In the meantime, I see Maggie has a question about a list of all of the CERT programs in the state, and I do have that available, and I'd be happy to share that with you. So I'm going to try to unmute Margaret and see if you can ask us your question.
Hey, can you hear me?
Hey, yes, ma'am.
Okay, it's Margaret Horst. I'm in Carolina Preserve and a member of CARI CERT and CP CERT. Maybe I missed it, Andy, but how do we get access to this Google Drive with all this wonderful information?
We're going to be publishing the URL for it probably next month. I'd like to get a few more speakers on there and have one or two more people look at the disclaimers we have, just to make sure we've got all the bases covered. One other thing that I wanted to mention, and I'm sorry if I seem to be stuttering a little bit, but whatever's Julia's having, it really looks good. Sorry about that. It's just been so long since I've been able to go out for good Chinese food. One of the other things I'd like to do is I have sent out an email to all of the various programs throughout the state. And for those of you who've responded, I really appreciate it. I've gotten some great feedback. I'll be sharing that with Samantha here in the next week. And a lot of those have listed a number of things that the various programs would like out of the NC CERT Council. And some of those are topics for speakers and topics for joint exercises and such. So one other thing I'm going to be adding here, hopefully before we release the URL, is a list of topics. I'm going to merge that with the topic list from FEMA and some other related first responder topics, and I hate to use this term, survival topics, that sort of thing. So that if you are kind of coming up dry on topics you would like to go out there and search for, there'll be a central list here that you'll be able to open and look.
And hopefully we might even get to the point, Andy, and I'm putting you on the spot here because this just came to me, so we haven't discussed it, but where maybe somebody could request something like, do you have a speaker who could speak on XYZ? And, you know, maybe we'd be able to find one. So I'm saying this to all of you who are on the call. If you have a great talk that you've delivered and you would like to share that, let us know about that, and we'll add you to the Speakers Bureau if you want to be a speaker. So that's you know, the speakers are going to be all of you and
Yeah,
other
so if
subject matter experts.
If anybody does have a topic they want to add, please contact us. If you don't have my email address, Samantha can share it with us. I don't have access to the chat window right now, but I'll type it in there as soon as I do once I'm done presenting. But I'm happy to place anybody in here who would like to submit their own topics. So.
Yeah, and I just shared my email again, and I'll be happy to put you all. Andy, you want me to share your email?
Yeah, please do.
Oops.
Am I working?
Yes. Is that Roger?
Yeah. You
All
know what
right.
happened? I think
What?
what ended up happening when I called in through the email, I think it dialed my phone and it opened the app, and I think I was called in via both methods. So I realized.
Oh, yes.
So I hung up the phone, and I think that's what did it. So I don't
I've
know.
had that happen before.
Yeah, I have a follow-on meeting at 7:00. I just wanted to say hello, and you know, we talked about I don't know, maybe a year ago, right before COVID started, because we're interested in starting something like this in Harnett County. You know, with the we saw the need for something like this after the hurricanes, and you know, we had a lot of roads flooded, and it just seemed like, you know, this was a good fit for us. So. Yeah, I'm really interested for Harnett County, and keep me informed. And I just wanted to say hello and. So with everybody, so thank you. But I have
Thanks.
to hop off.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us, Roger.
Yes.
Glad you were here.
What? Yeah, and I'll get in touch with you about, because it sounds like we're back in business again, so we can start moving forward again.
Yes.
Because I want to be on one of these calls. I want you to be able to introduce, and we have new CERT is Harnett County.
I would love that.
Okay. Well, thank you, and Happy New Year, y'all. Talk to you
Same
soon.
to you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Tina S. Let me see if I can unmute you. Let's see. All right, Tina, see if you, there we go. It looks like you have a green mic. I'm not hearing you, Tina. Oh. All right, Tina, we'll try coming back to you, but I'm going to move on. And Andy, if you will stop sharing your screen. Oh, great. All right, and so our next speaker, I believe, is Terry Schmidt. Are you with us, Terry? I don't see his name there unless he's over
Yes,
here.
I am, Sam. I'm
Yep.
here.
Okay, great. Hi, Terry.
I've got a couple pictures if you'll let me share my screen.
Okay. Let me go to Terry. Well, it's a long list. I got to find you here. Oh, no, make him a presenter. All right, Terry, you are a presenter.
Okay, so
There we
see if
go.
this works here. Are those showing up?
I'm not seeing it yet.
Well, I've got 3 pictures I'm trying to share. We'll see how that works.
Okay.
If we can't get Terry's to share, I've got some materials as well, just in case he couldn't make it tonight.
Let's go ahead and pop those up, Andy, and I'll talk.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks, Sam. I'm Terry Schmidt. I'm the program manager for the Chatham County CERT, which is sponsored by the Office of Emergency Management in Chatham County. We've been organized now for over 2 years. We have about 300 names in our email register and about 65 fully trained CERT volunteers. Lately, Chatham CERT's been very busy with supporting mass COVID vaccination events, but last September, in September 2020, Chatham CERT was asked to participate by County Emergency Management in a 2-day North Carolina HART, a helicopter aquatic rescue team exercise at the nearby Jordan Lake Rec area, which is a large lake in eastern Chatham County, about halfway between Pittsburgh and Cary.
Terry, could you talk closer to your mic?
Finally.
The HART exercises involve swift water boat teams placing victims who were firefighters on the water to be rescued by rescue technicians hoisted by a State Patrol Bell 407 helicopter. So the mission that we were given called for 3 CERT members at any given time for the team leaders for 2 days. And CERT responsibilities included traffic control, assisting with rehab as necessary, which was mostly providing water and watching for problems, watching the rescue site for unforeseen issues, assisting swimmers in the EMT station, and whatever else is needed. We all followed all safety rules, wore face masks. We had to wear hearing and eye protection because of the down blast from the helicopters. And we used Viper radios for communications between all the participants. So here's the issue. The lake temperatures are in the low 70s, which sounds kind of warm, but water draws heat much more quickly than air. So while the swimmers were in dry suits, it soon became evident that they were losing strength and fine muscle control just because of the cold weather exposure. So some lessons learned from our point of view. Long-term exposure to cold water degrades performance, even if you're a professional inside a dry suit is very much used to this. Hypothermia is always going to be possible when working around water. The participants that were in the water needed hand warmers, they needed blankets, they needed warm liquids, they needed warming tents. The time any participants in the water, that's got to be minimized, especially with the cold down blast from helicopters. And CERT members always need extra training on communications, especially since Viper radios are more complicated than the small hand radios we normally use for CERT. So all in all, this is a great exercise for everybody who participated. We really appreciated our local county emergency management and the sheriff's office and the fire department for participating and inviting us to participate. I think it was good from our point of view that we got more exposure to both local and state agencies, and they got more exposure to Chatham County CERT. So great exercise. I want to thank everybody who participated, and if you got any questions, I'll be glad to try to answer them.
Y'all have any questions for Terry? Let me go to the top of the list and see. I don't see any hands. Okay. So this is a really cool. Oh, Paul. Yes. Go ahead, Paul.
Can you hear me, Samantha?
Yes, I can.
I was wondering, Terry, how would we go about joining that organization there for that, or being called out for one of those missions?
You're local to Chatham County?
No, I am with Region 4 there in Buncombe County.
So can I, sorry, You're talking about the HART organization rather than CERT, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So HART is made up of firefighters and law enforcement and a bunch of folks like that. And don't know if they have a website, but I'm going to drop an email address in here. Brian Barnes is with emergency management, and he works a lot with the HART team. So I'm going to put his email address in here.
Okay,
And
yeah, I've got Brian's email. Me and Brian.
Okay.
Contact and everything throughout the whole.
Oh yeah. So I would contact Brian because I don't know specifically what the requirements are, but I do know that everybody on that team, they're firefighters and law enforcement primarily. Right. But so yeah.
Okay. Well, I appreciate it.
Exercise, if I may, the helicopter team from the State Highway Patrol, technical rescue from the technical rescue group. The swimmers were all local firefighters, and the rescue boats and the rescue crew were all from the local sheriff's office.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So you can see all the agencies up at the top there, just what Terry was talking about. Chatham County EM, Highway Patrol, NC Wildlife, North Chatham Fire, Chatham Sheriff's Office, Pittsboro Fire Department, and South Orange Rescue were all involved with that.
All right.
Yep. And they do fly all over the state. So I know you're out in Buncombe, so you can certainly, get involved with stuff out that way. So
right.
Yeah. Start with Brian on that.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah.
And you can also get to more information if you just Google NC HART Helo, HELO. It does list several pages for them on various North Carolina government websites.
Okay, put that, Andy.
Thanks, Andy.
So
And
one other point for the CERT members on the call. I talked to the pilots and the folks who are involved, and I said, so if I have an emergency and I need you out here right now, how long is that going to take? And the answer was, you can't plan on any less than 2 hours. It takes that long for the approval chain to get fired up, get a bird in the air, and get it out to wherever you're going to go. So that's not including travel time from the local place where they're stored. So it's not a fast responder, but certainly a very professional and very important responder.
Awesome. This is really a great experience, and not a lot of CERT programs have done stuff like this. In Apex, we did a landing zone class with Duke Life Flight. So check with, if you want to do that sort of training, check with your local hospitals that have the helicopter, because they have to do training missions. And so they often will come and do the classroom portion with you of what you need to know to set up a landing zone, and then they will actually come and land the helicopter. So that's really cool. But HART is even cooler probably than Life Flight, because they get to dangle from helicopters and fun stuff like that. And sometimes they even need victims, quote unquote victims. I know people who have been the danglees, so you might even get to do that sometime. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Terry. That's really cool. Any other questions for Terry? I know. All right. If there are no questions, let me see who's next on my agenda. I already forgot the order. Let's see here. Yes, Andrew Ferguson with Alexander County. Andrew, do you want to share your slides, or do you want me to show them?
I will be able to share them, I believe.
Okay,
hold on.
Great.
Just get this up. Do a slideshow.
So you want to just tell people like where Alexander County is and a little bit about your group?
Yeah, so Alexander County is north of Catawba County, south of Wilkes County, east of Iredell County and the I-77 corridor, and west or east of Caldwell, west of Iredell. So we're kind of isolated between all the larger counties, and as such, we have to be self-sufficient. And CERT, our CERT program is very unusual and it's highly active. We're constantly mobilized by our emergency management personnel. So what I'm going to share with you guys right now, let me bring it up. Got a lot of windows open. There we go. So what I'm going to give you an example of is kind of like an experience in a microcosm of one particular event that we have. One of the things that our county has experienced in this last year especially is a lot of severe weather events, primarily flooding. We're in the foothills of the mountains, and as such, we experience some very odd weather patterns sometimes with depending on how the flows come up from the southwest to the northeast pattern. Sometimes we experience severe rain. And with that, being in the foothills, we get a lot of runoff. And we had it made national news. We had a very significant event in November of 2020. And I'll say again, because this very experience that I'm going to blast through here with this PowerPoint presentation, we had a similar event earlier than a year in the same location. And that plays in very important as we go through this experience I'm going to share with you. The rule is don't be complacent, because just because you responded to an event one time before, that does not necessarily mean that the situation is going to be exactly as you experienced last time. So let me see if I can get the slideshow to go. All right, so on November 12th of 2020, we experienced a severe weather event from Tropical Storm Eta. And we didn't get, obviously, North Carolina didn't get hit directly by Eta, but the entire state experienced a lot of the rainfall events. And we had an unusual convergence here in the county. We were actually sort of lucky in a way. There's a certain amount of rainfall that actually ended up over in the surrounding valleys. But because of some previous storms that we've had and some deadfall, we have experienced some deadfall from earlier weather events and whatnot. There's an unusual occurrence that happened. We for sure had a 100-year flood, and some of the hydrologists are saying it's very possible that we experienced in some areas a 600-year flood. Very interesting, because this is the second 100-year flood that we've experienced in this county. So, 5:15, I received the call from the EOC to activate the CERT, and with a mission, one of our specialty missions in the Alexander County CERT is high water rescue. We had some potential trapped individuals and a campground in the county. Within about an hour, we had gotten our equipment together, gotten our Vipers, and we arrived on the scene at Hidden Valley Campground. Once again, this was national news, and you may have heard a little bit about what happened with this incident. We were next to the initial responders, that was the Stony Point Volunteer Fire Department. We were the next agency that arrived on the scene. So when we arrived, it was still dark, and there were about an estimated 30 plus individuals still trapped inside the campground. As we arrived, we were directed onto the scene by the incident commander with sort of understanding, one, it was dark, but two, there was this kind of feeling that we had been here before. We had already done a high water rescue in this park once before in February, but there was just something that was different this time. In addition to it being dark, when we arrived, and I had my assistant in the passenger seat, and we went around the fire truck to start entering into the campground. We started looking around and trying to get some visual effects, trying to orient ourselves a little bit. And you'll see a photo here in a second. Within the time that I turned to him saying, this doesn't feel quite right. What the hydrologists think happened was so much water had built up in the South Yadkin River, and it had been kind of dammed up with some deadfall, that there was a break further upriver. And with that, as we were trying to effect the rescue, this campground was in a kind of a geographical oddity in a way. It was a floodplain, and the way the river wrapped around, it was actually sort of like a bowl, for lack of a better term. We described it as a bowl, and we started noticing that the rate of rise in the water was coming up a lot quicker than we anticipated. In fact, when we initially arrived, and I'll show you the picture here, the front tire was barely touching water, but within 2-3 minutes, the water had rose up to the door frames, and a few minutes after that, the water actually entered our intake, and we had to abandon the vehicle. Let me show you the footage. So this is the CERT team members helping the swiftwater rescue teams unload victims. Fortunately, the sun had risen by this time. We're able to see a lot better. So by the time that we had gotten there and that dam had broken and this valley filled with water, most everyone in the campground had to abandon their RVs or whatever they were in, and were either holding onto trees. A lot were stuck on top of their RVs. Some were actually still trapped inside their RVs. And when the swiftwater teams were going around, we had to make entry through windows to actually enter the RVs and pull the victims out. 30 victims were pulled out of the water and brought to shore, but we had 5 missing. And the floodwaters with this bowl, it kept on rising. There was no tapering off in the entire time we were there. As a matter of fact, the water kept on rising during the entire time that we were on site. About 09:30, we'd been there for about 3 hours. The EOC told us to stand down, to come back, retreat. Because our swiftwater rescue vehicle or high water rescue vehicle, our high water rescue vehicle was underwater, we were told to come back and get another high water rescue vehicle just in case we had to do this again. Now, let me see if I can pull this up. Can you guys see my arrow? Here we are pulling more victims out and getting some accountability. Swiftwater teams from 4 different agencies arrived and were helping us manage this scene. The important part here is in the background, and if you guys can see this clearly, that is the top of a military M35 deuce and a half truck. And this was the vehicle that we had arrived on the scene with. This circle right here is where the initial command post was, and we actually retreat the vehicles up the hill to get it out of the hole right here. If you can see this, this is the apex of a garage, a large bay garage, and that's the water level. By the time this photo was taken, we're almost at peak flood. And I'll have better pictures here in a second to show you how actually deep this was. So the CERT team stood down. We were told to come back to the EOC to reconstitute and get assigned to another mission. The other swiftwater teams were reassigned. Some other potential incidents that happened throughout the county. But meanwhile, as we were trying to reconstitute, we had bridge failures. So we're still experiencing those in the county. I just received a notification today of how far behind we are in the road closures. We have a significant number of road closures, but this particular bridge was the bridge that actually led into the site. And we had been crossing over this bridge with the emergency vehicles. And I don't know if you happen to see this, but this was the collapse was actually live on TV. A news crew was actually standing right here when this bridge started collapsing. So it was the whole issue with the roads kind of made the response throughout the rest of this event that continued for a couple of days problematic. The interesting part is we had been relieved off the campground, which is right around the corner right here. We traveled across this road, and within about 30 minutes is when this collapsed. So we get back to the EOC. The director of public services said, hey, we're going to stand up a shelter for the folks that you guys pulled out of the campgrounds. East Hillsville Baptist Church had opened up their gymnasium. We brought in the DSS folks, Red Cross folks. We stood up a shelter for the flood victims. So we were supporting that up to a certain point. And then Red Cross and DSS started supporting getting the victims, since they lost everything, getting the victims lodging for the night. We didn't want to keep the victims in the shelter because we knew that their situation was going to be permanent. They were going to be permanently homeless. So by about 6:30 that evening, we had all the
looking for food.
We had all the people out of this shelter in lodging around in different areas. And we opened this up for USSR task force that we brought in from Charlotte. So the USSR task force, I had been told, okay, stand up in the shelter and go home and get some sleep because we're going to need you tonight. So I came back in and met the USSR team with the emergency manager. We took them out to the location where we still had 2 victims that were had yet been discovered, and I gave them a real quick lay of the land, as it were. By this time, the floodwaters were treated, and they gave a real quick spot check here. Came back to the EOC, and we started drafting up the next operational period, and emergency managers, our emergency manager, Garrett Huffman, there is using the map to brief everybody in on the activities for the next operational period. We were using a program called SAR-TOPO, which, by the way, I'd highly recommend to any of the CERT teams to get a baseline knowledge of it. It's very, very important. We spun up the second and started the third operational period planning, and they sent me home because they wanted me to come back in the next morning. We were we were kind of short-staffed, and the next day I came in, and the director of emergency services, public services, said, look, we're short. I need you as a deputy incident commander. We have all these agencies coming in. We're going to have this search going on. So the CERT, myself in particular, had to work at the Emergency Operations Center. Meanwhile, some of our other CERT members were out in the community, either escorting or preparing for the next operational period. So by the afternoon of the 12th or 13th, the USSR team out of Charlotte had found the 2 victims and had recovered them. So after that, the next week, myself and some of the swiftwater teams revisited the site to do GPS locations. And basically, the thing is, we arrived on this scene. This entire valley was a lake. It was filled with water. So we had to go through and try to track our steps, try to figure out where we had located people, where we had discovered people, just as for a training tool, if anything else, certainly the after action report. And so as you can see, those this was what we call the debris field. The river had rushed through the campground and had brought everything to one end of this field, and you can see the geographical feature in the background there. That is that little range right there is what caught most of the flood water and it's centered around the corner. Of the 30 or so RVs in the park, almost all were destroyed. Some were completely destroyed, obliterated as they were floating, and would hit trees and would disintegrate. Others stayed intact. This right here is a boat that, as you can see, got caught on debris. But it was a very significant destructive event in this campground, and this campground still is, for the most part, contaminated. And this is really the best slide to demonstrate how high this is. This is one of the chiefs of the Swiftwater team, and he's about 6 foot tall. And this is the height of the debris. So at one point, in addition to coming over the banks, which was about 5 feet, the water crested about 14 feet above the bank. So this entire bowl was about 14 feet underwater. It was very significant water collection. And then almost as quickly, by say noon of that same day, it had receded. Now, post-operation, CERT was tapped along with the Tazewell Lions Club to set up a refugee camp or displaced persons camp for all the people that lost their homes in this event. And we had to kind of build a little bit of one from scratch. We had fairgrounds that had an area where we used to house the carnies. So we rehabilitated that real quick. Samaritan's Purse brought in 12 RVs to donate to the cause here. And East Tazewell Baptist Church maintained a donations portal where all this was financed through. So within about 3 days, this became a non-emergency event and was kind of turned over to NGOs and DSS. And as of today, we're still housing all these individuals. We're trying to find them some long-term lodging. But this is just an interesting how the CERT team was brought in at all these different times, and we had to switch hats almost immediately from everything from response to recovery to long-term recovery operations. We participated in a lot of the after actions with this because we were on the scene for most of these events. We did come up with some after action and some best practices. One thing that we noticed, of course, is if you're going to be involved in any kind of water rescue, you can't have enough personal protective equipment, PFDs, not just for you and your team members in case there's an accident, but for victims. One of the unfortunate things that we found with the volunteer fire department is the volunteer fire department very, very focused on their primary mission, which is responding to structural fires and automotive wrecks. And water events like this really aren't in their top list of potential incidents to manage. So they really didn't have a whole lot of floaties. They didn't have a whole lot of throw lines. So if you're tapped to be in a position like this where you have to respond to a water event, having as many PFDs as you can would be very helpful, because we ended up with having 30 victims, which tapped us out of any kind of flotation devices that we could possibly have. We were short on blankets. We were short on just about everything because that was a mass casualty event. Another thing is there was a little bit of a misunderstanding from the incident commander about what those military vehicles were capable of doing. And there was a thought, this goes to that complacency again, that we could have gone in and done the same thing that we had done in February, where the water was not quite as high, and we were able to rescue the victims at will. That water came in so quick that it basically knocked us out of the response game. High water vehicles, which is a very useful tool in rescue, are not amphibious vehicles, and they will not float. And that was something that we're going to have to explain to the incident commanders that might ever call us again.
Andrew, do you have a picture of your vehicle when it's not underwater?
I do. I don't have it on the slideshow.
Okay, just so people can see what it looks like.
Yeah, if anybody inside a National Guard armory before, look out at some of the biggest trucks that you can see in the National Guard armory, and that would be about the size of our vehicle. The seating in a M35 truck, just the driver's seat alone, is about 4 feet off the ground, so almost 5 feet. So this was a significant water. Having water-resistant equipment, I did have a Viper with me. That Viper, it's a radio, awesome radio. Viper does not work underwater very well. But the biggest thing that we took, the biggest.
So it looks like,
there we
go.
Responded once before, and this was coincidentally, interestingly, this was our second water event that we had had in as many weeks. We had another water event somewhere else in the county, and we were doing damage assessment. So we were kind of a little bit, okay, this is our normal now. And
Andrew, I think you're having some connectivity issues because I see a little triangle on
we're
him.
going to get
Sorry.
people out of their
Andrew.
RVs. We're going to get them to the vehicle. We're going to take them to shore. Everything's going to be fine. This circumstance was not just outside of our capability. Oh, are you losing me?
Yeah, you're cutting in and out a little bit. You were great right up until about 45 seconds ago. Can y'all hear me? I think we lost Andrew. Okay, Jay says you can hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Thank you. So there's Andrew. Are you still there? So he looks like he's on the last slide. Did you have anything for wrap up, Andrew? There you go. Yep, I can still see you. I can hear you, Andrew. Can you hear us? He can't hear us now.
All right.
Oops, I just muted him. Check my chat.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, all right. I guess in the end, the complacency issue, thinking that you're going to respond to a situation the same way that you had before, is dangerous, and it can get you in trouble really quick. And it wasn't just CERT that ran into this; it was basically all the participating agencies. The unfortunate initial agency was the volunteer fire department that had never experienced anything like this before.
Yeah.
And even in their area. So there's been a whole lot of soul searching. We had 6 fatalities from this incident, 5 alone in the bowl while we were there. So we had to do some post-event stress counseling. But it was a very busy day and very busy 2 days, and we're still dealing with the effects. This
Andrew,
is not a typical CERT. Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, I was just going to say, we do have one question. Sonia wants to know if all of your CERT members are trained or prepared for swift water rescue. That's not a typical CERT function.
No, that's not a typical CERT function. And what we do, we differentiate between swift water and high water. We train with the swift water teams, but we're a high water team. And the difference is we don't use boats, we use vehicles. And high water is a different type of category of swift water. So yeah, we have training in the high water, but we don't have training in the swift water. And we probably don't want to do that. If that's not a CERT mission, if any of my members wanted to do swift water, they would need to join one of the swift water teams.
Sorry about that. So we do have 2 more questions, and then I want to move on to the next person. That was great. I love it. But Mary Ann has her hand up. So let me see if I can unmute her and see. All right, Mary Ann, I think you should be able to unmute yourself.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to say, I just want to compliment you, not specifically on this response, but just in general, the work and effort it must have taken over the years to build this relationship. So you guys were in the capacity to be called out and to respond and support in that manner. And I think that that really speaks to the direction and the leadership in your program. And I just really want to compliment you on that right off the bat, because that's incredibly impressive. And I work at the state EOC now, and so I actually had a little bit of experience on the other side of this
24-hour
event. And we talked a second ago about the NC HART teams, and I'm not sure if it was the incident commander or the emergency manager looked at, could they bring out the helicopter? Could they bring out NC HART to come and assist with that? And, it's an example of, you got to make those decisions on the fly and do the best you can. And, I think obviously having well-trained, actively integrated volunteers like you guys there made a big difference in this event. So I kind of wanted to just comment on that and say, I think that's excellent that you guys are working the program in that manner.
Thank you. There is a lot of trust that is built up between ourselves and the emergency management and the director of public services, sheriff's office, and all the other agencies. Our biggest, shareholders is the relationship that we build up with the volunteer fire departments. Since we're in a rural area, whenever there's an incident, the volunteer fire chief is the incident commander. In our emergency operations plan, emergency management does not necessarily get to take over an incident. It falls on the shoulders of the volunteer fire chief. And it's being in a volunteer organization, as everyone on this call probably knows, it's hard to have members, keep members, retain members, train members, to do everything that you need to do. So we just basically offer, we are here to support you. We don't want to take over missions, to support you in whatever mission that you have and you have a shortfall.
Awesome. All right, one more question for Andrew, and that comes from Alex.
Yeah, Andrew, Alex Fahrenheit here. I'm actually just on top of you in Wilkes County. Did you,
yes, hey, Alex.
After the incident, did you look into the possibility to have a donation kind of thing set up with like local shops for your PDFs, your floating devices, things like that? I know from times that we deployed to like Harvey in Texas that were shortcomings materials, and we had mutual agreements with like Walmarts and things like that in Austin, where we could knock on the door and say, we're really in need of that and that. Could you spare some? That is something that maybe to look into.
Yeah, fundraising is super important, and what we didn't on this particular incident, we didn't want to interfere with the fundraising efforts that was being done by Samaritan's Purse and East Hillsville Baptist Church and surrounding agencies. So coincidentally, it's just very interesting that you said that. So as this was all transpiring, we had just signed earlier in the year a MOU with the county, and the county now maintains us on the roster as a responding agency, the same as they would on a fire department and a rescue squad. And with that, the county said, hey, you know what? We're going to give you a stipend. And up to this point, now the county budget had been approved in June, started in July, and this was now November. And up to this point, we had never gotten any money from the county. And guess what happened the day after this incident? There was a big check from the county sitting in our mailbox saying, oh, by the way, sorry about that. I bet you guys could use this. So having a relationship, hopefully, with the county is helpful. but doing fundraising, um, it's nice to have a portal for fundraising. It would be really good to have someone else do it for you and then give you a check. Fundraising is hard sometimes.
Thank you
Thanks.
so much, Andrew. I want to echo what Tony said in the chat. He said your presentation was very informative and insightful, and thank you for that. So I agree with you, Tony. That was great. And thank you so much, Andrew, for telling us about all the great work y'all are doing out there in Alexander County.
And this is a bizarre incident. This was a unique incident, but we are having a whole year full of unique incidents, and this is just one of them. So
yeah,
keep your programs active.
Yes. Thanks again, Andrew. Good to see you.
Thank you.
All right. Next, we're going to hear from Dave Bruhn, who is with Apex CERT. The floor is yours, Dave.
Good evening. How is everybody doing?
Great.
Good to hear. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Can everybody see my screen?
I can, yes.
Okay, great. So, like Samantha said, my name is Dave Bruhn. I'm the Vice President of Apex CERT. Unfortunately, my Apex CERT career does not provide well for me, so to speak. So my daytime job is that of a systems engineer at NextGen Healthcare. I am an IT geek. Unfortunately, there's nothing I can do about WebEx acting up, so please don't ask. I'd love to help, but sometimes that's just how it goes. So I'm here to talk to you tonight about Apex CERT and how we've been able to keep our numbers up during a pandemic. I'm sure that is a challenge that that everyone in this forum is facing. This is certainly not unique to Apex, but fortunately we've been able to keep our numbers up about to the same levels of participation as where we were prior to the pandemic. Our biggest challenges, of course, have been, keeping that up. How do we keep up the participation? Our in-person meetings used to be monthly. They still are, but they are no longer in person. We used to have about anywhere from 40 to even upwards of close to 60 people attending our meetings, so much so that we actually had to move into a much larger space. How do we keep that momentum going? One of the other challenges, of course, is, how do we manage our trainings? The meetings are very helpful, but the biggest purpose of those meetings is to give people in the area the training that they need to be CERT responders. How do we also continue our volunteering efforts? Our CERT team does quite a bit of work around Apex. How do we keep that up? So we had to go back to basics and ask ourselves, all right, what draws people to CERT to begin with, and how can we utilize that to keep people coming back, to remind people that this is why they're here. First and foremost, people love gaining knowledge. Even though these are CERT meetings that we have every month, you don't have to be a CERT member to come to our meetings. And so we try to keep our meetings as varied as we possibly can. And so that tends to draw a lot of people into coming to our meetings. So they like gaining the knowledge, and then once they're there, putting it into practice. And, that's right now in a pandemic, that might be a little bit challenging, but it can still be done. A lot of people are also there for that social aspect, that kind of teamwork function. So how do we maintain that as well? And we also have a lot of people who just love to volunteer. I'm sure that's exactly why the overwhelming majority of you are here with CERT, is because you love to volunteer. So you know what? With Apex CERT, hey, the show has got to go on. We've got to keep doing what we do, albeit a little bit differently. We have had some events, fewer than usual, but some planned and some unplanned. For example, Apex CERT we helped with the 4th of July reverse parade. That's where people were in their cars and went through the parade. So intentionally. And so we helped with the traffic flow for that. We have maintained our fire hydrant painting. This is my wonderful wife here. This was taken before the pandemic. I couldn't find a pandemic picture, but we can still do social distancing when painting fire hydrants, if members of the same household work together, paint the same hydrant, hey, those hydrants are certainly more than 6 feet apart, so it's very easy to maintain that social distancing. We did help with the efforts in Bertie County. As you all know, that we did have a tornado that went through there. Um, you know, pandemic does not put other emergencies on hold. Emergencies still happen, and so we were a part of the unplanned event, helping out with a point of distribution, or pod, out in Bertie County. So the question becomes, can you train in a pandemic? And my overwhelming answer is absolutely. As a matter of fact, we should be training in a pandemic. If you've ever seen the movie Crimson Tide, there's a wonderful scene in which early in the movie, there's a fire on the sub. And shortly after they seem to get it under control, that's when the captain says, you know what, let's do a drill. And now I'm not suggesting that we set anything on fire, nor am I suggesting that we go outside and run around like crazy in a pandemic trying to train. But we need to do things very, very deliberately and very safely. So, but I absolutely believe that we should do trainings in a pandemic. The best way, in my opinion, is doing it online, and we found ways of doing that. You can use Zoom, you can use WebEx, and GoToMeeting. You can train, online instead of doing it in person. There are ways. You just got to get creative. Fortunately, if you're a 501c3, you can get a discount on a lot of these services. So you don't have to bear the brunt of the entire cost. One way to do that, though, is you need to be a member of TechSoup. I think there's a small cost to it, but it tends to open up a lot of doors. So I highly recommend that. So what have we done? So once COVID hit, we have done quite a few trainings over these last few months. We started in April with the role of CERT in a pandemic. We just got it out of the way, the gorilla in the room, all right? The elephant in the room. We had to talk about it. So we talked about the role of CERT. And as you can see here, we varied the subjects a lot. Some of them were relevant to the pandemic itself, and some of them were just fun. Some of them were actually games. So for example, we played CERT Jeopardy, or we had a preparedness quiz. You can game online with everyone, and there are certainly plenty of resources to help you do that. You'll see that we also had quite a few people come in from the outside, people who are not members of CERT. So we had guest speakers. Fully 1/3 of our meetings involved guest speakers, and that helps to break up the monotony when someone else is presenting rather than the same old faces. You want fresh faces when you give your meetings. And so even though we've all been doing this remotely, we've still been able to maintain a very high participation rate. I believe most of our meetings are at about 40 participants, anywhere from mid-30s to mid-40s on average. So there are a lot of other training ideas that you can do. Some of these I'm borrowing from CNC SAR. You can do a land compass navigation. Set up not an obstacle course, but set up kind of like a treasure hunt, if you will. Use the compass, send out one team at a time. Plenty of open space. Don't have to have people on, working with each other, just one person navigating and trying to find certain clues that you may leave in a wide open area. Radio skills. You can practice on your radios from 2-3 blocks away. It encourages social distancing. You can practice your phone tree. One idea that I have is you start the phone tree, you give a message, and then you let the phone tree work itself, and then it's that old game of telephone. What was the message at the other end? It's very, very helpful to make sure that your phone tree is effective. So that's another training idea. Anything where social distancing is maintained, I highly encourage it. So, as far as retaining people goes, keep those lines of communication open, not just with your people, but also your sponsoring agencies. Let them know that you are still there, even though we're in the middle of a pandemic. Reach out to your people over Facebook. I don't know if many of you are on Twitter, but reach out to them. Let them know you're still there. And if you haven't heard from some people, reach out to them specifically, individually, and say, hey, how you doing? You doing okay? You may not know, their situation. Maybe they themselves got COVID or are dealing with somebody who has. Be a team, help them out. When you help them out, it helps to foster that sense of teamwork. And that definitely keeps people coming back when they feel that they are part of that team that cares about them. Ask your members for help with things. Ask them for ideas. What trainings do you want to have? Get them participating in those trainings. If their idea gets picked, they're likely to show up. So, go to your members and ask them, hey, what do you want to know? But most importantly, be the trusted advisors. Be the calm within the storm. The calm that says, guys, we're going to get through this. Let's, work together. And here is the good information. We don't want to cause panic, but get that good information out to them. But I have to say, when it comes to participation, listen, comfort levels are going to vary. Not everyone is going to feel comfortable doing, for example, an outdoor exercise, even something like a radio drill. They may just not feel comfortable going out there. Okay. Don't overcommit your teams. Reach out to them. If there is an event, reach out to them and understand if your teams say, hey, I'm just not ready to do that. I'm taking care of my son. I'm taking care of my wife. Don't overcommit yourself. Don't commit to, something that you cannot guarantee that your team is ready for. So when talking with your sponsoring agency, make sure that they know that, your team's priority is their health and their safety. And hey, family comes first. So always look out for each other. And you know what? Bottom line is, hey, just have fun with it. Get creative with your trainings. It's a bit of an adjustment for everyone. We know that. So, just have some fun with it. And with that, any questions?
Thanks so much for that, Dave. Do you guys have any questions for Dave about keeping your numbers up or comments about what you've done with your team to keep everybody engaged this year?
We've been very lucky. Samantha, we've had the vast majority of our people who came to the in-person meetings are still coming back to the Zoom meetings.
Thank you so much for that, Dave. That was a great presentation. As always, you always do excellent work. Appreciate your time. Somebody wants to know what online group gaming platforms we might use.
We've used Kahoot with some of
I'll
our
write
trainings. Yeah, that one.
And actually, the exclamation point is part of the name. Kahoot.
That's right. Yes, there are a few others, but that's the biggest one that I would recommend. Basically, you can set it up as kind of like a multiple choice, kind of like trivia night. Answer quickly, you get points. People love that.
We have the Jeopardy game that we played is set up in PowerPoint, and we're happy to share that. And you can even modify and put your own questions or answers, I suppose I should say, because it's Jeopardy. But sure. Email me, or I'll put my email in here again in case anybody's missed it. When we're happy to share those resources, and maybe I'm going to put Andy on the spot, but in addition to something like our Speakers Bureau, we could share things like that, because that Jeopardy game, you don't need a certain speaker to do that. It's something we can share with y'all, and you can do it yourself.
Yep.
So, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Dave. Really appreciate it.
Quite welcome.
All right. Is Lois ready? Let me see if I can find Lois. I'm scrolling down. There's Lois. Let me unmute her. And Lois is with Albemarle CERT, way out in Perquimans County. So we've literally gone from one end of the state to the other tonight. Oh, there's Lois. I hear you.
Hi.
Hey, tell us a little bit about you and Albemarle CERT and what y'all have been up to.
Well, I moved here to the Hartford, town of Hartford in Perquimans County about 6.5 years ago. I've been a registered nurse for long time, almost 50 years.
Wow.
My last jobs were as a school nurse at different levels. And when I moved here, I just wanted to continue to be able to contribute to our community. We're pretty rural. Hospital is about a half an hour away. And I got involved in CERT, and the next thing I knew, I was the director of it. So what we've done recently is a lot of the things that Dave mentioned about keeping ourselves out there in the community so that people know we're here. We've done some fundraising things to try to generate some money for ourselves. We're not supported by our board of directors, so we have to get a little innovative about how we gather some money. And we've been pretty successful with that. This year, we're kind of jokingly telling people that if they join CERT, we'll get them a free vaccine. So a little bit of tongue in cheek there, since they're free to everyone anyway. But we've had a really great response to our county needing help with the vaccine clinics that they've been doing for the past 3 weeks. And I'll show you some slides, because as we get into that, you'll see the expanse of what would I say? The expanse of what we've had to do. We work very closely with the emergency management services. Jonathan Nixon is the director, and we've been working closely with Laura Harkins, the nursing supervisor in Perquimans County. It's part of the Albemarle Regional Health Services. So let me just start with some slides here. How do I get my picture out of here? Yeah, but I'm still there. Okay. So here we have Laura Harkins, the Board of Health Nursing Supervisor, orienting the CERT members. We had 3 different CERT teams respond in the past week or 2. And she's orienting us to exactly what we have to do to help them. And some of the things, it's just more members of the 3 teams, excuse me. Here we are, kind of staying there. We have both the EMS, the Board of Health Nurses, and 2 or 3 CERT teams there. You could see the cars in the background. We had 4 lanes of cars all lined up. This is from the first clinic that we did on January 6th. People lined up at 7 o'clock in the morning. We didn't start giving out the vaccines until about 9 o'clock. So what we're doing here at these tables is drawing up the vaccine into the syringes, attaching Band-Aids to them, and just getting ready to start rolling. This is one of our CERT members, 2 of our CERT members, getting their vaccine before we started going through the lines and giving them out to everyone in line. There I am doing some paperwork and getting ready to start. On the left, we have a CERT member and an EMS member, and they are getting Band-Aids out to put on these syringes. On the right-hand side, you could see the syringes that we've drawn up. The little white tags with the numbers on them are the lot numbers for the vaccine, and then the Band-Aids are attached. Putting the Band-Aids this way gave the vaccinators a much easier time. They could just rip the Band-Aid off and put it on someone's arm as soon as they gave the shot. I would just say this is just a really short line we had that day. And as you could see, if you can look way in the back beyond the trees, this line went for a couple of miles. Some of the people, as I said, came at 7 o'clock in the morning. Some of them were there almost as early as that. Some waited over 5 hours to get their shots. That's how many people we had. It was very cold that day. Our feet and our hands were turning numb. So we'd have to go, take turns going inside to warm up a bit. We had the clinic at the recreation center in Hertford. That gave us plenty of room to address all the cars and the people that came. They still had to wait a long time. Unfortunately, towards about the middle of the afternoon, we used up our allotment of vaccine for the day and we had to turn a lot of people away. Most of them came back the next day when we had more vaccine. This picture is of the National Guard that came to help us. At first they said we were doing such a good job that we didn't need to have the National Guard, but we told them that our local resources were really getting kind of tired because of the volume and we really needed the help. So they sent the National Guard and they did a fantastic job helping us that day. We did over 750 people. This is just various people, EMTs and health department people going through the cars. What we did was we put a sticky note on the windshield and wrote the time that the vaccine was given, because after they got their shots, if you could see the cones on the right side, the cars would have to pull up in that section and sit there and wait for 15 minutes while EMTs and other personnel went through and talked to the people and tried to determine if they were having reactions or not. So this is kind of like a never-ending line, but we did get 750 vaccines into arms that day. So that's about all I have there, but I just wanted to say that I think in the 3 weeks that we've been doing this, we've had almost 3,000 shots that were given out. So we've done a really good job with all of that. We had the emergency management services, the sheriff's department, and 3 different CERT teams that were there. Some of the things that we did, besides attaching the Band-Aids to the syringes and helping to fill the syringes, the cards that you get after you get your shot, the first shot, we're calling the golden ticket. You need to hang on to that. It has your information about your shot, and it needs to be brought to the clinic for the second dose. And if you don't have that, then they will not give you a second shot because you have no proof. I see there's a question here about, is it sanitary to open the Band-Aids and stick them to the syringes like that? The pads were fine. It was only the sticky part of the Band-Aid. It was half a Band-Aid. At one point, the National Guard decided that it would be easier for them not to use the Band-Aids, as most people weren't bleeding anyway. So we did not have to use them at all, but it was open to the air, yes, but we felt that the contamination rate would be very minimal, and that really wasn't a big concern. It was more a concern about getting the shots into people's arms. So are there any other questions about it, or anything we could tell you?
Any questions for Lois? I know that other CERT programs have been helping with vaccine clinics too. The reason I asked Lois to be here is Albemarle happened to be the first program that I heard about that was helping with these vaccines. And so I jumped on the chance to get Lois here to talk to us about it. And great job. I mean, in one day to do 750 vaccines. And I'm thinking there aren't that many people in Perquimans County. Where did you find all those people?
Well, one thing that we found last Tuesday, there were 5 of us who went to the emergency management services office and made, I would say, between 500 and 600 phone calls that day.
Wow.
And what we found was that if you go into the ARHS website, there's a list of about 8 counties that they service. And people were afraid that they were not going to be able to get their shots. So rather than take the chance of waiting in line for a long time and then not being able to get their shot, they signed up for all 8 counties. So
what is ARHS?
Albemarle Regional Health Services.
Okay, great. And we did have a question. Was this clinic organized by the local health department or by that ARHS, the regional health service?
Organized by ARHS, and so each individual county has their own board of health that's overseen by ARHS. And I forgot what I was going to say. Sorry.
I do know that your emergency manager, Jonathan, is on tonight. And
yes, I do. And he sent me a whole bunch of very professional looking slides as I sat down to listen to this and said, oh, they look a lot better than the ones I put on there. But
well, I just wanted to know, Jonathan, and I didn't prep you for this or anything, but didn't know if you wanted to share anything from your side about how it has worked out for you all having the CERT program there to help with these efforts. Oh, there we go. Yep.
Sure. We're very fortunate to have 3 CERTs. Lois, great job with your presentation, your slides.
Thank you.
We're fortunate to have Albemarle CERT, Deep Creek CERT, and the Shores that lands in Performance County. And all 3 have been very active in our vaccination clinics. The one for tomorrow was canceled, but we're begging for help for next week. We're probably or potentially 2. And we couldn't do it without their partnerships. It's been great to have them. They've basically managed all the registration for us and done a lot of, as Lois said, a lot of prep work, getting vaccines together. So great partnership.
But, you know, one thing that really has amazed me that we have about 25 people on our CERT team now, and at least 15 or more of them have volunteered to do this, and they keep volunteering. And Laura Harkins keeps saying, I don't want you guys to get burned out. And we're like, are you kidding me? We've been sitting at home for a year. You know? It's like, let us get out and do something.
Yeah.
So
Lois, I
really
do have a
been
question for you from Sonia and Carrie. She wants to know what would be your top 1 or 2 tips that you've learned now that you've done this for several weeks that you would share with us. Like, what are the top 1 or 2 things that you've picked up?
I would say try to work inside where it's warmer. No, also we just all work together, and it really turned out to be a good community effort. And keep in touch with your emergency management personnel, because they will call you and let you know they need help, or you know, you can call them and say, hey, we heard there was a disaster out on the highway and you're going to be setting up a shelter. We can help with that. Or, and just really don't turn down any help that anyone offers you. We've had many women here on the Albemarle plantation who volunteered to fill out the vaccine information on those little cards, and that has been such a time saver for the vaccinators. The first day we did this, the vaccinators had to stand by the cars with these little cards and fill in Moderna and who it was given by and the date, and you know, write down at the bottom that come back in 28 days. So we've had people doing all of that, filling in that information, so it doesn't have to be done the day of the clinic.
That's a great tip to have. That's awesome. Anybody else have any questions for Lois? All right, I don't see any others. Lois, thank you so much for sharing
You're
this with us
welcome.
tonight. And if you wouldn't mind emailing your presentation to me, I would love to share that if that's okay with you.
Sure, that's fine.
Great.
I'll do that.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So final thank you to all of our speakers, Terry Schmidt from Chatham CERT and Andrew Ferguson with Alexander County, Dave Bruhn, I'm not signing off yet. Hang on. Dave Bruhn with Apex and Lois with Albemarle CERT. So thank you to all of them. And of course, Andy Foshee for talking about the Speakers Bureau too. So I know that we've already been here for an hour and a half, but as I told you, I'm willing to stay as long as you all want to be here. So this is the portion where we open the floor for any questions. And I guess the easiest thing will be if you raise your hand, then you'll pop to the top of this list and I can unmute you if you have a question. All right, Andrew, go ahead.
Hey, Sam, could you and Andy stay on the phone after everyone's off just for a moment?
I will. I can't speak for Andy, but if he's available, I will stay.
Sure, happy to.
Okay.
I do have a comment from some guy named Jay Royster who wants to share something. Go ahead, Jay.
Hey, everybody. I'll turn my video back on. Good to see y'all here. I am developing probably be summer when we can somewhat all get back together. Yeah, my video is just, there you go. How about that? I have to hold my PC right. I'm developing for the summertime a training for a reception center. And you may not be familiar with that. It's not the same thing as a shelter, but this is in the event of some kind of nuclear accident. We would be training on how to use equipment and help out in such a situation, but it would probably be summer we can get back together. So something to look forward to.
So stay tuned for that. There will be more coming. So what else do y'all have for me? Questions, comments, anything CERT related is fair game. And if I don't know the answer, I will find it out and get back with you. I see Howard. Let me unmute you, Howard. Oh, I think I did. Let's see. There we go. What you got, Howard? Oh no, did we lose him? Wait, he's muted again. Maybe he changed his mind. Well, I'm waiting to see if Howard wants to say something. Shelley has a question in the chat about training in terms. She signed up for a few classes, but often can't get into the classes because CERT is not prioritized for those. Is there an easier way to navigate terms? Terms is a nasty beast and it's very difficult. I know it's not the most user-friendly thing. Shelley, if you want to let me know offline exactly which classes you're interested in, I can see if there's anything that I can do to try to get you into some of those. Or perhaps depending on what the class is, maybe we can get them to hold one specifically for CERT volunteers. It just kind of depends on the class. So that would be a good way to do that. Yes. Oh, and also a couple of things I wanted to mention. One, if you haven't already put your name in the chat, if you would do that, because I'm kind of taking attendance that way just to see who all is here. And also, if you're not already getting emails from me, you can either email me or send me a private chat and give me your email address because I want to be sure you're getting all of my updates. It looks like Howard's back. Let me see if I can unmute him. Are you there, Howard? Yeah, I sent him the request to unmute. Yeah, hang on. There's also some questions in the chat. I'm still trying to get Howard. Jay, can you work on getting Howard unmuted somehow? Andy says he found most of the classes in terms that he signs up for. He does get in. So yeah, another thing you can always do is email the instructor directly and ask permission if you can be in. So that's another choice. Who made the decision to classify CERT members for the vaccine? I'm not sure what you mean by classify. Do you mean to get them helping out at the clinics or to give them the vaccine? Do you mean that's Carl and Barbara, sorry. If you mean for them to receive the vaccine, most clinics, anybody who volunteers to help at the clinic gets to be vaccinated because you're right there on the front lines and you're helping out. And so that's how they got to get the vaccine. I'm not sure if that answers your question. Howard, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Oh, there's Howard. All right, what's your question?
Thank you. One of the things that I've had a little bit of experience with working with disasters through the Red Cross is the mental health aspect. Not to make people clinicians by any means, but some trying to understand what the people have gone through, what might be going on in their lives at the moment, and how to help them. They did mention some grief if you have people on your disaster there that where lives are lost, obviously there's going to be some real heavy duty stuff, but sometimes it best nipped in the bud as soon after the incident that you can have. So do you have people in your resource list that can do that?
Yeah, I don't know if you noticed when Dave was showing the slides of speakers that we had in Apex in the past year, one of them was a woman, her name was Penny, right? Dave will remember because he has his thing right there. Anyway, she's a licensed social worker, and she offered that presentation to us, and it was specifically about dealing with the stress of the pandemic. It wasn't necessarily CERT related. It could have been relevant to anybody, but yeah. So there are people out there, and I'm sure that that woman who spoke with us would be happy to speak with your group as well.
Her name was Jody Flick.
Jody Flick, yep, and she's a clinical social worker. Maybe Dave will put that in the chat so that you'll have a record. And I do have a follow-up. The person who was asking about classifying the CERT people to help with the vaccines, and their question was to give the vaccine. So to be clear, the CERT members were not the ones giving the vaccine. They were helping out with things like registration and traffic, and you have to be a licensed medical professional. So an EMT, nurse, paramedic, doctor, you have to have that credential in order to actually administer the vaccine. So the CERT people themselves were not giving the shots. Now, Lois is a nurse as well as a CERT volunteer, so she may have, I don't know if Lois is still on or not, but she may have given shots herself, but she is a registered nurse, so that's why she would be able to do that. Next, I see Levine's hand. I'm going to unmute Levine. Let's see. Are you there, Levine?
Yeah, it's Mickey. I did it by mistake. I was trying to change my name or something.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
So you didn't have your hand up? All right. Anybody else have any questions? Yeah, I don't see any hands. Angela, I see your note, and I will answer you privately tomorrow, probably, because I'll have to look at my list. Oh, so interested in how they were. So CERTs are considered first responders. In fact, I'm looking at the chat again. So and how they were classified under the first responder criteria to receive it. So first of all, anybody who volunteers at the clinics should be eligible to receive the vaccine. However, CERTs are classified as first responders. In fact, FEMA has a new they have a program that's called One Responder, and in the past it has been used for what they call typing, or it's sort of a way of classifying first responders, and has primarily been used for fire and EMS and law enforcement, but they are now going to be including CERT in that as well. So, if FEMA says that we're first responders, then we're first responders. And Lois did say only the health department, National Guard, and EMTs actually gave the shots. And with the question about gloves, Lois says that they changed the gloves between every car and every patient. So I think that answered all of those questions. I hope there's nothing. Oh, Dave did put an email address in here, joeflick@email.unc.edu. That's the woman who spoke to us about stress in the pandemic. So, and her first name is Jody. So if you want to contact her, it's Jody with an I, Jodi. I'm sure that she would be very happy to speak with your group as well. I think I'm caught up on the chat. My techie people who are backing me up will let me know if I missed anything. Okay, Jay says I'm caught up. Anybody else have a question, comment, anything? Well, hearing none, I'm so excited that so many of you came out tonight. Came out like you're in your living rooms, but I'm glad that you're here and that you joined us tonight. And I always want to hear from you and know what's going on with your CERT. So please email me. I love to see pictures, and I like to share those on the Facebook page so that other CERT people can get inspired by what your group is doing. And I think we heard 4 awesome presentations tonight about things going on across the state. So please do stay in touch. Let me know what you're doing. Let me know what your needs are. I can't promise that I can meet all of your needs, but I will sure try. And y'all stay safe and take care. And if you don't have anything further, y'all can log off. And it was great to see everyone tonight. Thanks for being here.
So Samantha, I guess you and I have to hang out, call to the principal's office or something.
I know. I think we're in trouble with Andrew.
No. These are like frozen screens.
I'm not sure. I don't think so.
Weird.
They're people I put to sleep. I used to be a software instructor. I'm a professional putter to sleeper.
Oh, wow. They're going.
Of course, if I started to sing, that would run everybody off very quickly. True story, no joke. We had a deaf cat. I was walking around doing some things in the house. I started singing, looked at him. He was sitting in the doorway, gave me a dirty look, turned around and left. So yes, I have the ability to chase off a deaf cat with
That's
my
pretty
voice.
good. That's pretty good. That's quite the yeah, you definitely don't want me to start singing, right, Jay?
That would be correct. If you're not deaf, you will be.
Jay says when I sing, it brings tears to his eyes. I think that's really sweet.
Not good tears.
My wife's voice has actually taken us all over the world.
Wow.
She used to be a member of Duke University Chapel Choir.
Oh, that's so cool.
Because of that, we went to South Africa, Spain, the UK, China. Really interesting travels.
Cool.
Well, I imagine the rest here just they're either had this running in the background or something. I just want to both of you guys and Jay, you too. You're integral to the team, Jay.
Of course.
But yeah, this was exceptional. This is a great exposure because we had. I was looking at some of the participants, looking for names. I was recognizing, so there were some people outside of CERT that were on this call, so that was cool.
Yes.
We
briefly had a FEMA rep on there.
Yeah,
I don't know how long he stayed, but yeah.
I got a question for you, Sam, and I
Okay.
don't know if you and Andy are working on this together. We were talking about it at the last council meeting that we were going to check the rosters of all the CERTs to see who was active. How far on that?
Andy's been working on that.
Okay.
That is correct. Basically, I sent out, what was it, 84, 85, something like that. I have received a number back. although I set a deadline of this past Tuesday, I am still getting some trickling in. I got 2 more today. Once that has fallen off entirely, I'll be pulling the numbers together for Sam. I got around probably 10 or 12 that were sent back to me. 3 or 4, 5 of them had I'm retired now, or I'm no longer with the agency. Please contact this person. Only one said that he tried to start a CERT, it didn't get going, so may as well just take him off the list. But I have been actually getting some pretty decent responses. Unfortunately, I'm rather disappointed since I'm supposed to be in charge of the Speakers Bureau, and that's one question very few people answered the way I was hoping, which was, oh, we've got these 3 speakers or we've got these 3 presentations our group can give. Although, Sam, I'm going to be sending you an email probably in the next couple of days. A gentleman with a university in the western part of the state wants to get his class involved.
Was that Ronald Ramsey?
Could be, yes, because a
Yeah,
lot of his students are capable of giving FEMA-like presentations.
Oh, cool. Oh, maybe it was Western Carolina.
I think
Anyway.
it may have been WCU, yeah.
Okay, yep.
Yeah, one of the items I think I saw on the list there was bites and stings. I was just wondering, is that the same presentation I've given before?
Yes, that's yours.
Okay, I was just saying, man, that title is very similar.
I shared your presentation.
Okay, I thought so.
So you were volunteered for that.
I thought, yes, I love bites. Well, I like talking about them.
Yes.
Not.
Yeah, you don't like to experience them.
No, I don't.
I think
like
Andrew has more on his mind. I can tell. What else can we do?
The one, Andy, the one thing, I have a little bit of bandwidth right now that I would like to start polling the Western North Carolina branch folks. So if we've identified active branches and you feel like we should some, just let me know and I'll start hitting all the Western North Carolina ones.
Okay. Everybody in the state has been emailed, and what I was going to do is do a spreadsheet with all the answers, and that will let us know who has not responded. And so, yeah, we can. I'm basically going to be turning this back over to Samantha once I've gotten all the results done. Just the list, and then I mean, I don't know the state. I've been here for 26 years or something, but I really don't know, or 28 years. I just don't know where all the various counties and groups are in the state. Probably take me a while to try to figure out which of those are in what region.
I've got that. Yeah, easy peasy.
Okay. Well, that's what I had. I have a little bit of bandwidth between now and with, provided that nothing else untoward happens.
Don't say that out loud.
Well, I swear, Samantha, it's like every 2 weeks we get activated, and it's just
I know.
COVID 2021.
Jay,
oh, well.
Stop.
All right. Well, cool. It's good seeing you guys again.
You
always.
too. And thanks for your great presentation. And thanks, Andy.
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
Appreciate all y'all. Thanks for being here.
All right.
Be safe.
All right. Bye.
Bye, guys. Jonathan, are you good? I think he was on twice, so I don't think he's really here anymore. Are you here, Jonathan? All right, I'm ending. Oh, I want to save the chat before I end this. Save chat. And then I have to stop the recording. This is. Oh, good. All right, and then I guess if I just end the meeting, the recording stops. Or do I have to stop it? I'll stop it.